Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Zooming in on the topic of the female psychopath, the crazy making, the cognitive dissonance, the sort of pathology in the thoughts, behavior, and emotions exhibited by a female covert narcissist. Now, one thing to really understand about whether a narcissist is indeed covert or overt, realize that there's a whole spectrum and professional diagnosis is needed. However, covert narcissist is a narcissist who has much self-interest. In other words, they're always consistently putting their needs above others. In fact, to the exclusion of others. It's about them and no one else. So it's actually a very clear-cut sort of definition about what motivates the narcissist. And also the discrete lack of empathy. So really not being able to empathize with another's feelings, emotions, thoughts. These are not taken into consideration if you're dealing with the female covert narcissist. And among with these two kind of like baseline traits, I want you to see and understand how they play out, how they manifest really in behavior. So you can become essentially a better watchdog, a better identifier of this sort of behavior. Not only to protect yourself, but also to identify it in society, especially the news. Some of the high-profile females that we see in the world today. And although, we don't want to be extremely judgmental, it is important to identify some of these qualities at first, and then see how these kind of plug and play more or less into some of the episodes that we see playing out in the media. And I would like to give, kind of a shout out to a viewer who had suggested I do a video topic on this, and looking really specifically at very current events, specifically with that of Angelina Jolie. Looking at some of her crazy making behaviors, looking at some of the cognitive dissonance that is manifested and created in her life as a result of some sort of disorder going on. Now let's not put labels, let's just look at the very big picture here, because I want you to be able to grasp some concepts as you see them operating in a very high profile, very accomplished narcissist. Now we're not going to judge, we're just going to keep it open. Now let's just look at a general big picture of events that have transpired, along with a couple other elements. And you can see how these all kind of interweave and play out together to create the drama, the crazy making, and the cognitive dissonance. Now, Angelina Jolie is a very high-profile, highly paid and compensated actress. A lot of people adore her, a lot of people do not. We're just going to look very quickly at the recent episodes and explosion in the news, and her supposed divorce from Brad Pitt, another high-profile guy, very high-accomplished, award-winning actor, highly compensated. I mean, they're in the news, Brangelina. I mean, they're an icon, they're an element. And hearing recently about the recent news that's transpired that she is now supposedly filing a divorce, $400 million in combined assets. They have a number of properties, and they have a number of children. So let's look at the array of events here and how this is played out and how you can see this sort of behavioral decision-making thought process and how it plays into a narcissist personality, and see if you can identify a pattern here. And of course, we're not diagnosing, we're just keeping a very general bird's eye broad view. Now, Angelina was raised by a caregiver for 8 years. And she is in the news as saying that, Angelina was a wild child growing up, and, knew that she was a force to be reckoned with in the world, and that she was prone to self-harming, self-mutilation. So, cutting, dipping her hands in burning wax, things of this nature. Now, that's very indicative of the borderline personality, where, they're prone to have such pain and anguish inside that they will, cut themselves, i.e. with a razor, with a knife. They will create scars along their body, in different tracks, underneath their arm, on their shoulder, on their ribs, wherever, on their legs. Sometimes self-mutilators, have a whole series of cuts on their body. They will also self-mutilate through lots of piercings. That's also, a self-harm sort of expression, as well as, excessive tattoos. And, this whole self-harm, when a person really goes through a lot of this, it creates a lot of pain-relieving endorphins. So it helps to create pain and then the relief of pain. So it's really what they call self-mutilation or self-harm behavior. So knowing that this is in her past, it's very interesting to identify that. So keep that in mind. And, she was ridiculed and bullied in her, while growing up. I think in Beverly Hills where she grew up. Okay, so she was picked on, that could, represent really some childhood drama that, and trauma that she had experienced, which all kind of weave into the later adult expression of these behaviors. And if we look now, at the progression of her divorce from Billy Bob Thornton and working with Brad Pitt and seducing him on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, basically seducing him away from his married life, which is again is showing a very discreet lack of morality to violate the holy sacrament of matrimony. I mean, there is definitely some transgression of boundaries there, utilizing that psychopathic allure to love bomb and cause people to become really brainwashed and gaslighting and do these things that they're usually not comfortable doing. In other words, they're violating their very own standards. All these things we really have developed in this channel, and you can always look back on the videos. But this very high promiscuity, this very high sexual energy is very typical of the female psychopath. And it's considered aberrant behavior or pathological because it's usually done in very risky ways, meaning i.e. not safe, and harmful, meaning harmful to people, other relationships, financials. They do it with complete disregard. And yeah, there's the one night stands, but usually the female psychopath will engage in a tremendous amount of this pathological lying, sexually permissive behavior, excessive sex drive, multiple partners, and things of this nature. And if we really look at that, that was a high-profile divorce as well. And now, if we look at Angelina's behavior as it's transpired, she has been photographed in the news, of course, with him and their kids. She's looking like extremely anorexic, and that is another, indicator of pathology when someone has eating disorders, personality disorders such as anorexia, starving oneself, going through the release of endorphins that come with starving. I think they said she was down to 79 pounds, and she's a tall woman. I mean, she's looking extremely, extremely thin. And in fact, her caregiver had described her, being carried into a mental health facility earlier in her life. So she does have mental health issues, but it's all very kind of a very general, no diagnosis is out there saying she's X, Y, or Z. So I want to keep it very broad because I want you to understand there's some patterns here as well. She's aligned herself with these organizations that work to protect women and children in third world countries, your Cambodia, your Taiwan. She's she's adopted 3 children from third world countries, and she has 3 genetic children with biological children with Mr. Brad Pitt, so they have 6 in total. So she's aligned herself as this very sort of worldly, caring figure, i.e., standing up for abused women, abused children, especially in other countries. And it's been said that 2 of her closest allies are, heads of these types of foundations and organizations that work to protect female rights. And so she's kind of surrounding herself with this persona or mask. I mean, she's got a lot of fundraisers, and I'm sure she's done a lot of great work there. Yet look at her personality type. If you were to Google Angelina Jolie, and you can do this right now or after this video, if you were to plug in her name and then click images out at the top, you're going to get a full list of pictures of Miss Angelina Jolie. And she is not smiling in 99% of those. And if you look at her eyes, it greatly displays the psychopathic glare, the stare, the smirk that we see that is typical of a female psychopath, where they have that piercing gaze, where it's designed really to be very piercing. And when people are around these types of people, they feel an aura, a presence, a very seductive gaze that is very alluring, and a lot of people find it very hard to pull away from. The untrained person finds it very hard to resist. So if you look at her pictures, I find that very interesting. And also take a temperature of her warmth, her personality. Does she seem to have a warm personality? I mean, always very cold, very submissive. That really of a covert narcissist. Very submissive, meaning, not really showy. She's always, very often in a very single color garment. No color or straps or design. It's usually almost like a tube top, so very nondescript, which is very typical of a covert narcissist, where they're not really like very vibrant and like life of the party and outgoing and vivacious and like a smile on their face and pat on the back to people, really outgoing. That's your overt narcissist type of personality. So look at really how she displays very much that female psychopathic glare. See it for yourself, because I think it'll help you understand. And you can also start to notice, like when people smile, their eyes light up, their face lights up, all the muscles underneath, their heart engages. You don't really see that registering at all with Miss Angelina Jolie. I mean, just look at that pure piece and see if you were able to see it and identify it and put some pieces together for yourself. And look at the chaos that she has ensued with the crazy making. Notice how this divorce comes at the heels of Brad Pitt's opening of his movie, Alliant, which I checked out the trailer. It looks fabulous. I mean, he's at like the height of his career. He's traveling and fulfilling his dreams, his goal, becoming, he's at the epitome of his game. He's an A-list actor. And it's what a covert narcissist will do is act like the ultimate sabotager. We've discussed this in other videos as well. That's one of their discreet ways. The female psychopath does not want you to win. I mean, this occurs on all different income levels, including the very, very high, extremely affluent people. But these behavior patterns are the same. So the sabotaging comes really at the heels of the release of his movie, when he's, in this, scene with this, touted French actress who is very warm, very caring, but plays, an intimate and like romantic tie relationship in the movie. I've only seen the trailer, but supposedly she has like tons of envy against Brad, and, a lot of her behaviors are thought to be developing out of envy. And, bringing her negative attention, the anorexia, the not eating, the crazy-making behavior of getting a $12 million rental for she and the 6 kids and will not let Brad see them. So now Brad cannot go and attend his, movie opening, because now he wants to focus on the family. So do you see the detour that a crazy maker will make? Just as soon as you're about to hit your pinnacle, just as soon as you're about to fulfill, your career, or you're trying to focus on something very meaningful and big for you, there they come underneath to undercut you and undermine you. Again, it's the power play, it's the control play, designed to steal one off course, really, and show like who's really in control, who's really got the power in this relationship. So to see if you can identify this playing out, it'll be interesting to watch in the news as we hear in the next couple of days. And I'm really not much of a gossip fan, but this, for purposes of our channel, I really want you to identify, see some of the patterns that erupt now and in the near future with the crazy making of somebody like a covert narcissist. See if you can plug the pieces in and see how this really hurts and destroys people, from the lives of children, innocent children, to the movie industry, to all the people associated. And see how much attention she's getting now for it. Peace and harmony with you here today. I would love to hear your feedback. Please list some comments below. And thank you for the viewer who recommended this. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support.